Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. I will call the Monday, April 26, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Do I have any additions to the agenda? Councillor Nielsen?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Could I have the integrated hub on the agenda? It may be a moot point as we progress through the agenda today, but I don't want to lose the opportunity if I don't want to lose the opportunity to have that conversation in the event that some of my concerns are not addressed as we go through the agenda today. Thank you.
Okay, I believe we can put that under 5A. Anything else? Seeing none, I'd like a motion to move into camera. Councillor Blatz. Okay, we can move on to item 3A, emergency management update.
All right, good afternoon, Council. I'd throw my video on, but if I do that, it'll sound like my computer's ready to take off. Just quick update for emergency management. As we've seen in the past, some of the information that's going to be through this update was already addressed through Mayor Council's video update to the community. However, in November, the province introduced a list of restrictions to slow the spread of COVID-19 down throughout the province. So these restrictions led to the closure of a bunch of our city facilities and the inability to deliver programs and services to our residents. So as expected, a lot of these restrictions were not very well received by the public. However, seemed to be a needed to be done. So what included into that was the provincial mandatory masking, as well as our city's temporary masking still remained in effect from the previous list of restrictions. In November, we declared a state of local emergency to support our 24/7 integrated hub. And to date, that renewal has been going every Monday. So every Monday morning, we send in our renewed state of local emergency until council gives us the direction to rescind it. Coming out of this, an assisted isolation site, or ACES site, was opened up at the Siding 16 Hotel on December 26th to provide a place to go for our city's vulnerable population during outbreaks. So the spread of infection through the 24/7 integrated hub wouldn't spread further through that population. We did receive grant funding from the government for about $440,000 to open this site. However, with other communities with larger outbreaks than our community has, some of that funding has been pulled back, leaving us currently with about $70,000 to $75,000. And very hopeful that, we're going to make it through the rest of this with that funding. We were planning on seeing about 25 clients through the doors, and keeping it fairly full. However, to date, so as of, let's say today, we've only seen about 16 clients, so quite a bit less than what we've anticipated and what information was provided. So in December, the province also added some more significant restrictions, which impacted our businesses, such as occupant load. It started out at 25% of fire code occupancy. And then, of course, right before Christmas, it dropped down to 15%. So that included our retail venues, church groups, and some other community events such as farmers markets as well. So all dropped down. This was also met with some, resistance from local groups. So with the rise of the COVID variants, the province opened up a secondary isolation site. So this would be a independent site, or a site where people will just go and isolate from their families. So they don't need any type of security or anything. They're on their own free will. That to date actually has seen more clients come in and utilize that service than the isolation site that we set up with community social services. February and March, our COVID cases in the city had declined dramatically. We were down to 3 active cases, and we were only a few days away from actually rescinding our temporary masking bylaw. And then we took a large spike, which increased the numbers upwards of 42 cases in less than a week and a half. And then it kept climbing and climbing. We ended that up at about 146 cases, and now I see we're actually starting to decline once again. So in April, a major concern from the government Alberta was the increase of the variants of concern, or VOC. And these made up between 20 or 15 to 25 of all positive cases, and were increasing. And of course, as time went on, it climbed upwards to 40 to 47% of all new positive COVID cases in the province. Then we had our April 6th update from the Premier, Minister Shandro and Dr. Hinshaw about the variant and how it was responsible for the 40+% of positive cases. We did have some really big hotspots in the province, such as Banff, Canmore, areas of high tourism. They seem to be ones that were really helping out with the increase of cases. So coming into April 7th, a new line of restrictions that put us back to stage 1 was implemented by the government. So libraries, of course, closed immediately. Retails, that were allowed to go back up to 25% were dropped back down to 15% of occupancy. Churches and assemblies of, like churches and places where they're allowed to worship, they remained at 15% through this. Outdoor gatherings remained at 10, and then they were totally not allowed anymore. So that was another obstacle we had to face. So what's happened now with the last run of restrictions is our restaurants for in-service dining has closed, and now has opened up patios for service to clients. So the fire department is working actively right now with our planning and development to make sure that these are fitting into Alberta Health's restriction guidelines. So getting out of COVID right now, getting away from talking about that, some other news for the Emergency Management Division is we're currently working on a regional response plan. We're in the final stages. We're about 90% completed this plan with the help of one of our the contracting agencies. So this includes the county, town of Millet, and the city of Wetaskiwin. So if there was something that should happen, a large-scale event or an incident, we can draw upon each other for a response to help with providing our directors of emergency management, deputy directors, and then working the way down. This plan had started back in 2019 and was funded by the ICF grant that the city had applied for. Today, our municipal emergency management branch is overseen by a DEM and 2 deputy DEMs, and we are looking to fill a 3rd deputy DEM position and looking into new positions for logistics officers as well, with a bit of the turnover that we've had. And the DEM and the deputy DEM have also been invited to join what they call the North Central Regional Incident Management Team. And that's a team that helps out throughout the province if there's a type 3 incident. So an incident that involves provincial intervention, or something that's really going to go beyond the resources of local jurisdiction. So Paul Edgington and myself have been invited to join that team. So that is another little initiative that we've taken on. Okay. So currently, the new things that are going on is May 5th is going to be the end of our plastic bag restrictions. So it's going to be back in as council's direction when this started. So we are pushing forward again to let our vendors know to start using reusable bags again. There has been some resistance on the social media with that, but that is to be expected. And our last little item to this, I would really like to have Sergeant Yeager speak to, and that's going to be our CPOs with collecting stats and enforcement onto our public health enforcement. So if Sergeant Yeager is available.
So just to update you, because we have the rising cases, back in March 4th, we had an order that we had our public health authorities back in place. And it was up to the municipalities, basically, if we were in, we had to report to Solgen, and if we were out, we just didn't do any reporting. Based on discussions with Jamie as our DEM and Paul, with the rising cases, we've now enacted our powers back into reinforce. So myself and Sean Cuff, having CPO1s, now have public health authority again. And as of last week, we started reporting back to Solgen how many cases we're working on. So as of last week, we actually had one complaint received, and we did compliance, and we actually gained compliance through the Public Health Act. So that's kind of where we're at with just responding at complaint by complaint and working with AHS in regards to any concerns. So any questions regarding that?
Councillor Hilliger.
No, actually, and that's a myth. Even BC has, RCMP actually made a social media post that no police force is stopping any vehicles in regards to out-of-town plates, other than we actually had one here was a US. We actually did deal with a US plate from out of country. So we actually dealt with that with the partnership of the RCMP, and it was found that they actually lived here. So.
Any other questions? I guess I just have one, Jamie. Councillor Lonsdale.
Yes, sir.
The ACES site over at the Siding 16 Hotel, it's noted we have $75,000 left from funding on out of 439. Now, when that runs out, what would the next step be with our rising cases at this point?
Okay, so just to clarify on that, with the number that we have left, because the province did pull back money from our community out of this grant to put into communities that were higher, had a higher infection rate or had a higher outbreak. What is going to happen is if we do run out of the funding, we just apply back to community social services for some more grants. So they know that that's going to happen just in the short term for their budgeting as well. They had to make their ends meet, but they did assure us that if we did have to reapply, that more money would have to come our way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Trent.
Thank you.
We'll move on to 3B, Recreation Department Biannual Presentation. I believe we have Natasha.
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm here today to present the biannual presentation for the Recreation Department. So I have a PowerPoint prepared, Karen, and I'm not sure if you can open it up on your end. Oh, there it is. Perfect. All right, so I'll just start with a brief description or a brief overview of the department. So the Recreation Department consists of 39.75 FTEs, which is broken down into 14 full-time positions and 25.75 casual. So recreation operators, lifeguards, program and admin staff, and transit staff make up this total. In regards to the budget, the 2021 operating budget is just over 6.7 million and includes 12 costing centers. And the approved capital budget for 2021 is just over 2.3 million. Next page, please, Karen. A quick overview of the customers that we serve. So there's currently 3,431 active Manlook members. Over half of these members are adults, with the second largest demographic we serve being the senior population. And although youth make up a very small percentage of the Manlook membership, they are much better represented in dryland programming, which you will see in a couple slides here. So the department's programs and services can be broken down into three main categories, including programming. So this is aquatic programming, fitness programming, and dryland programming, as well as facility rentals and usage and events. So aquatic programming includes things like spontaneous public swimming, Red Cross lessons, Orca's Life-Saving Club, private lessons, and advanced aquatic courses. So due to COVID, the department has adapted the programming to offer registered household bookings to adhere to current health measures. And this is currently the only aquatic program we are able to offer due to the ongoing pandemic. Fitness programming encompasses drop-in gym use as well as registered and drop-in fitness classes. However, right now the gym does remain closed again due to COVID. So our dryland programming is all of our youth programming, such as summer camps, PD day camps, play and dance play programs, as well as youth leadership courses. And right now, with the current health measures in place, the department can offer our play program, Red Cross babysitters course, and Home Alone Safely courses. PD day camps and summer camps are currently not allowed to proceed until step 4 of the provincial government's path forward. And in regards to rec events, they remain on hold due to the pandemic as well. But in a normal year, we would offer things like our Customer Appreciation Week in January. June is Rec and Parks Month, the Spooktacular Halloween Party, Festival of Trees, and Santa Skate. Moving on to the next slide, gets into our service standards. So there are 3 main organizations who set the department's service standards. So Red Cross establishes standards regarding swimming lessons and youth programming, including first aid, babysitters, and Home Alone. Life-Saving Society sets out standards regarding all of our general lifeguarding, advanced aquatic courses, as well as our Orca's Life-Saving Club. And Alberta Health Services determines requirements around our pool chemistry, pool circulation, and pool cleanliness. And last but not least, Council Policies CS-003 and CS-005 outline how the department's fees and charges are developed, as well as scheduling priorities for rec facilities. So an example of this would be local ice groups having a higher priority for prime ice times than non-local groups. Next slide, please, Karen. So getting into some trends around our programs. So this is in relation to aquatics. So the graph represents drop-in or day pass pool use at the Manlook Centre. There has been a steady increase since 2017, and the larger increase from 2018 to 2019 can be attributed to surrounding pools in our area like Camrose being closed for renovations. And of course, it's no surprise, the sharp decline in 2020 is a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Manlook Centre being closed for 160 days during the year. It's also important to note these numbers are strictly drop-in, or when people are paying day rates, these do not include membership use. And dryland programming. So this graph shows the number of registrations for all of our youth programs since 2017. And thanks to the department's dedicated program facilitator and program staff, there's been a steady increase in attendance. So overall, the feedback received about our camps is really positive, and parents and caregivers have a lot of good things to say. So we're very fortunate to be able to offer great camp and program experiences for the participants. And of course, again, no surprise, in 2020, summer camps were canceled because of COVID, and only a handful of PD day camps and courses were able to be offered before the facility was closed in March. Moving on to facility rentals and usage. So this graph represents the number of ice arena rentals between September and March since 2017. So the increase in numbers can be attributed mostly to an increase in minor hockey numbers, as well as more non-local teams taking advantage of some of those black ice or less prime times in Wetaskiwin. Hockey and figure skating practices were able to resume in September of 2020, despite the pandemic. The arenas did need to close from December 13th until February 8th due to the COVID. And then since February 8th, arena rentals are permitted for youth sports. Ice in Arena 2 was taken out near the end of March, and Ice in Arena 1 will stay in until the end of April, so just a few more days here. And that's a month longer than normal, and this was to allow for some of those groups to make up some of the time since we were closed for a period there. So now jumping to our operating and capital projects. So currently slated for operating projects for this year is our change from our current rec software, Max Galaxy, to ActiveNet software. So this project is set to be complete. We're expected to go live actually September 1st of 2021. And the hope is that it's really going to enhance customer service and improve efficiencies within the department. So that's for operating projects, and then moving along to our approved capital projects. So we have 3 on the go this year. The first being the ice plants. So both plants in the Civic Center have surpassed their useful life and will be replaced in 2021. Since the plant rooms were installed, certain equipment has been replaced or refurbished, but a full replacement of all of the components has never been done. So replacing the ice plants will ensure seamless service delivery to the community and greatly reduce the risk of mechanical failure. The second project slated to happen is the resurfacing of the tennis courts. So the courts were last resurfaced in 2002 and require repairs in order to make the area more safe and usable for the community. And lastly, the MCCAC Energy Savings Grant will include upgrades to both the multiplex and the Mamluk Center, making the facilities more energy and cost efficient. And all of these 3 projects, the tenders are currently being developed. All right, so COVID impacts. It's, as I've mentioned numerous times throughout the presentation, COVID has had a large impact on the department's normal operations. The 160-day closure and reduction in programs and facility rentals in 2020 resulted in $1 million less in revenue as compared to 2019. Membership sales were also severely impacted, as shown in the bar graph. And since memberships are currently on hold to be reinstated whenever restrictions lift, it is assumed that membership sales are going to take a little while to rebound to pre-pandemic numbers. And moving on from kind of the sad stuff and the COVID implications to some recreation highlights. With such a roller coaster of a year and so much uncertainty, I'd like to note some of the positives. So firstly, in March of 2021, the department started work on our program and service review. So this review includes developing a service inventory of current services offered, engaging with stakeholders, both internal and external, to identify current challenges and identify a future state with recommendations on how to get there. This project will conclude with the final report being presented to Council in September of this year. The second highlight I'd like to mention is staff adaptability. So it goes without saying, COVID has made us all adapt in ways that we may never thought possible. And with the closure of Mamluk and the ongoing restrictions to avoid as many layoffs as possible over the last year, recreation staff were redeployed to other areas to lend support. So staff helped with everything from communications work to public works to health and safety to fire services and FCSS. And though staff were eager to come home to the rec department, they really appreciated the opportunity to stay working and apply their skills in different areas. And lastly, in fall of 2020, the department underwent a temporary organizational restructure. And so the main goal of the restructure was to provide some more stability for the department and increase capacity to complete the program and service review, as well as provide leadership in the area. And through this restructure, a new temporary program supervisor was hired, Cal, and he's pictured in the middle there between Rachel, our program facilitator, and Angela, our office coordinator. So Cal has provided tremendous capacity that allows time for projects like the program service review and the software conversion project to move forward, as well as other tasks like budget and business planning. So those are a few of the highlights. And that concludes my very first biannual presentation. So thanks for listening, and I'd be happy to take any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you, Natasha. Any questions? Natasha, looks like you're getting off easy.
Thank you,
so
everyone. Have a
much.
great day. Yeah.
Yes, great report. Thank you. We'll move to item 4A, FOIP bylaw update. And welcome, Juanita.
Hi, everyone. I'm here to present the new FOIP bylaw update. The RFD is presented to Council with an update on the FOIP bylaw. The FOIP Act was updated in the 2000s, so the current FOIP bylaw that we have, which is 1451/99, doesn't duly reflect this change, and in order to ensure they align with current legislation, our current FOIP bylaw will be repealed and replaced with the current FOIP one that we're presenting as 1993-21. The city will be rolling out internal FOIP training for all city staff during the remainder of 2021. The legal risks if the city bylaws do not reflect current legislation is to put the city at risk due to non-compliance. So I move that the Committee of the Whole receives the updated FOIP bylaw as information. And I would request that Council refer the matter to regular Council for further direction. Any questions? Would you like me to go through the changes that I've suggested?
Please.
So the new bylaws changes is the first part is that it's a revision to update and designate the head of the city for the purpose of the Freedom of Information Protection Act. We've added some definitions to align with what is explained within the bylaw. Under designation, we've designated the Chief Administrative Officer, i.e. City Manager, as the head for the duties and responsibilities as deemed appropriate pertaining to the FOIP Act. There is a Schedule A for the list of applicable fees, which is updated from the last FOIP Act as well to reflect the current costings. And then the severability was added in, which was not included in the original one. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything else?
Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you. On your Schedule A, are these all new costs related to FOIP requests, or are these carried forward from?
Some of them are exactly the same and some of them are slightly revised.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Councillor Nielsen, did you still want to move forward with item 5A, being the integrated hub? Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but what needs to happen, Sue, to put into record that we want to move forward and getting some kind of statement out to the public in whatever format? You know, I guess my concern is the establishment of a committee, the committee meeting, having a discussion. Does that mean we're going to have some kind of a report to the community a month from now, which I think is not timely enough? And I don't know whether it's just easier to simply ask administration to move forward and work with Open Door to get a meaningful document out, report out, and while the process is being put into place to establish a committee of some sort. I think what everybody has shared here, and including Mayor Gandon, is we are getting a lot of requests for information. And some we can answer, and certainly some I don't think we can. So I think the timeliness of some kind of response is really important right now, because in spite of all the information that was shared today, as Tyler says, it's not information that it's in camera. It's not information I can share with the public tomorrow. So if someone were to phone me tonight and say, so what happened? My comment is, we had a really good conversation and a really good report. And you're going to hear something soon, maybe down the road. And I think somehow we need to expedite that somehow. So I'm looking for direction, I guess, from yourself.
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, our communications can work with the Open Door to come up with a suitable update on what's happening around the shelter and the city's participation around that. And then I think later in the regular council meeting, Paul also has a few ideas on how we can link maybe the task force to the community safety plan, so we can have further discussion.
And I
about that.
recognize I'm only one voice at this table here today making that request. So, if I don't want to send you on a chase if the rest of my colleagues don't necessarily agree with that direction.
Mayor Gandon.
I think if we've had the idea to put together a task force, that it's not just administration's job, it's not just the Open Doors job on getting this communication out. I think that at least 2 members of council have expressed an interest on sitting on this committee, that the takeaway for information is that this is what we're going to do. We're meeting now, then striking a task force with our communication administration, the Open Door, and a few members of council to start working through some of the details and getting some of the information back to the community that we've been asked. It's not just the Open Doors responsibility to get the communication out. It's not just the city of Wetaskiwin's responsibility to get the information out, but it's us as members of council who are given the information or are the ones asking the questions on behalf of the residents and business owners to get that information back to them as well. There's 4 of us that are at least somewhat active on social media that if we want to get ahead of it, we can use that platform as well. So I would say that information going forward would be that that council has struck a task force, and maybe that's a motion that'll come forward in the regular council meeting, designating members of council to said task force, and setting up a meeting and making sure that we get those questions answered. And then if we've got the opportunity to share the Open Doors information, their good news stories, even that presentation that Jessica had shown us today, there's been video shared through the Open Doors social media as well that council is more than able to share as well in terms of new information or the good news stories that they have coming out too. So it'll be a collective effort, and like anything else, it's going to take some time. I don't have a timeline in terms of when information will be going forward, but I don't know that it's totally fair either to task our administration and especially our communications team with something else, or we have to take something off of their plate if we're going to make this a new priority.
Anything else? You're good, Councillor Nielsen?
The only caveat I would put on that, though, is if we're not getting direction right now anyways, it would come out of a motion in regular council. So if you want to make a motion in regular council that this is the direction that we want to take, then that would be something that I would support.
Okay, I'm fine for now, then, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I guess we'll look at adjournment and be back here for 4 o'clock. Mr. Hilgardner, thank you.